name is Claire Norman, and welcome to Conversations with CKG. We're really excited to bring some opportunity to have us sort of sit, chat, and talk a little about what's happening right now, and certainly in the context of family and mental health. I'm sitting with my good friend, Joe Torrance.
Good morning.
Joe is our Director of Development, and more than that, he's a great person and also an ordained youth pastor. So Joe has had a lot of opportunity to talk very deeply with teens and families about really important topics, and he brings to us not only his expertise in the development world, but this great nature and ability to connect with teens. And so I'm eager to jump in. Today's topic is, on Conversations with CKG, is how to really exist and navigate with this newfound togetherness in a family full of perhaps teens. And what CKG expects to do in all of our work is to promote positive, supportive conversations around mental health. So our series, first of a few, we're hopeful, and thank you for tuning into the first. These Conversations with CKG is meant to really be an outreach of that deep desire to facilitate these productive conversations around mental health. I'm going to hand it over to Joe to kind of kick things off on his experience. He's the father of 3 girls. I'm also the parent of 3 young adults. 1 teenager is in the mix. So we have some similar dynamics at home with some very developing brains in the mix. So welcome, and thank you for spending some time with us. We're hopeful that over time we'll give you a place to come and sit back, relax, and chat with CKG.
Well, good morning, Facebook. Hey, Claire. So the reason why we started this conversation was just this whole idea around now that we are in the midst of this quarantine, and it looks like it might be a reality for a little bit. What do we do with these people that we love dearly, that we are spending a lot of quality time with? What do we do as parents and as teenagers when both sides are making each other crazy? And so I don't know about anybody else's house, but I've got 3 daughters, 2 teenagers, and 1 preteen, and so we are living this firsthand. And I think it's just good to have some perspective about what does it look like, and why is it tough not only on our teenagers, but why is it tough on us as parents, and what we can maybe do to help navigate some of those waters. And so for me, what we have experienced is we've spent a lot of time together, which has been great, and it seems like the first week of quarantine was kind of like summer camp, right? Everything was new, and it was kind of fun, and we're doing this online learning thing, and that's great. And then the second week, things became a little bit more real and a little less fun than the first week. And then by this week, and entering into this week, like, it's for real.
Right.
And these people that we love, we're getting on each other's nerves. I mean, that's just because we're all in the same space together all the time. And so what do we do about that? And so I had, my wife and I, we had an interesting conversation with our oldest daughter last night, and she was just sharing with us just how much she misses her friends, and that her anxiety is really around just not being around her people, around her tribe. And we're her people in her tribe, but we're not the same, right? And so just figuring out how to navigate those waters, and it, there's so much of this that is so completely normal for being a teenager, but also how do we help her to not be so anxious, and how do we help each other not to be so anxious in this time? And so one of the things that we know to be true about teenagers is that they are developmentally wired. Their brain is wired for this connectedness, right? Their social influences really do matter a lot, right? And what do you do when you're not with your friends, when you're not with your And I think it's a real challenge, and I think it's a real challenge, not just, I don't think it's this thing that they're making up. I think
Exactly.
that, right?
Exactly.
So what do we do about that, right?
That's right.
As parents, how do we help our teenagers navigate those waters?
That's right.
So-
Well, and it's interesting, Joe, because a New York Times article that I believe was released today, we can share it with you later, did mention that parents need to recognize that, these young adults are craving individuation, and suddenly they're back home, their wings have been clipped. And so now, a short story is I have a 21-year-old who's back at home, and he asked me to make him a grilled cheese sandwich. He said, but please don't cut it. And it made me laugh, and actually studies show that these young adults who are feeling that they're being treated in an infantile manner, that causes another level of just messiness in the exchanges and the dialogue.
Yeah.
But backing up even a little for parents, we need to suggest that oxygen mask theory in the family dynamic.
Right.
I mean, understanding that the family system, all of us are in this uncharted territory, and asking our teens for a little grace as we find our way through this as well, ask for their input, and then, just understanding we all need to navigate some unknowns together. But parents do need to take care of themselves. I think we know that. I'm wondering what you and your wife might have been layering in this as you care for your 3 daughters in that space.
So honestly, I would say that might be one of the biggest challenges for us is trying to figure that out and what that looks like. We do a good job of just being outside. Keeping social distance and all of those things that you're supposed to do, but we have found ways of just kind of taking a break, so to speak.
Right.
And I would say that our kids have done a good job at that as well. Like our house isn't huge, but it's just this, they find their own space, whether it's outside
Right.
or inside or playing a game that they're making up, like that. So
Right.
But it's that self-care piece, I think, that maybe is the part that we're struggling with because we just don't feel like we have the space
That's right.
to separate,
That's
right?
right.
And so, maybe some
Right.
inside
That's
tips
right.
would be
Well,
good.
and we all need them. Just the idea of taking a little bit of alone time, maybe before the troops get out of bed, is a really good suggestion for parents. But knowing that we need to make space in the family and in our parenting for this disappointment and sadness that the teens have. I know a lot of knee-jerk reaction may be you are in a home with all your food right here and all of those great blessings that many of us have and some of us don't actually. So, but making space for whatever experiences the teens are having and the disappointment of what you mentioned before, a lot of their teenage events that are no longer. A lot of these things that they've kind of built up as part of rites of passage are no longer. So some space for that sadness, right? And to that end, this New York Times article suggests that parents specifically allow for that time alone and that privacy, and not to be overly concerned about potential, that kind of retreat is actually a great time to be putting on some protection around this new environment. So that's, but also, and I've seen you do this, Joe, in our work environment, is making space for joy too. There's some things probably with your girls, I know my youngest, that's kind of cool, not having all of the scheduled demands, so that's okay to be relieved at some of that too.
It's been kind of fun, right? Like my girls have developed these TikTok dances, and I don't understand it at all. I don't understand how the whole thing works. My daughter calls me a boomer all the time, but just watching them do that, something creative together, has been good. One of the things too for us is that having them have the ability to kind of create their own schedule, here are the things that have to happen, and giving them some freedom to be able to pick and choose how they do those things, how that to-do list gets done, has been really good for us too. So there's still some autonomy there, some freedom there, but here are the things that need to happen. So, and my wife, she's a genius. But our girls are actively participating in the stuff that happens at home, from the washing of the dishes to the washing of the clothes to take it, I mean, like,
Right.
things that have to happen to keep our house moving,
That's
they're
right.
a part of, right? And so they're feeding, they're a part of what makes the whole thing work.
That's
And
right.
so,
And Joe, that's actually what this New York Times article did also summarize toward, and that is to treat teenagers as problem-solving partners
yeah,
in this odd time. So we're super excited to continue to allow for these four main things in the New York Times piece. One is making space for the disappointment. Two is make space for the relief and the joy. To expect some friction and to allow some privacy and time alone for your teens. It's very interesting. I think one of the things I ran across, Joe, and you mentioned that your girls are doing this, and that is, our kids, our families, all of us, we're a part of history. I'm not telling you that should make you feel victorious to be involved in this pandemic, but it's significant. So one of
Yeah.
these days, you maybe ask your teens, what are you gonna tell your grandchildren about how you behaved? And what did you do in a pandemic? That's huge.
Yeah.
Ask them to think forward a little on how they want to be able to tell their story about this.
Yeah.
So I found that to be really, really cool. And I think there's some video assignments out there for some teachers.
Yeah, and a couple, our girls are writing journals about what they're experiencing from day to day, which,
Yeah.
I mean, right now it kind of feels stuck in the middle of all of this, right? But
Right.
later, that's going,
Yeah.
I think it's going to be really cool, or
Yeah.
or could be, and
Yeah,
so.
it
yeah.
will. It will. So, and I know a lot of you have seen a lot of great ideas for activities for the family, but taking a moment for yourself to step back and just observe,
Yeah,
detached in the best way you can, what is happening around us. I read something recently that the virus does not have emotions. So for us to interact with the virus emotionally is not productive, right? So to just acknowledge that it's here, it has some lessons for us.
yeah,
We are all in this together, ladies and gentlemen, teens, kids, everybody. And we're gonna make some mistakes as we navigate. But coming from a place of true and good intention, we can't help but have this move forward and look for those lessons as they come. This is tough. We've got several more weeks left, Jody.
yeah.
Any final tips from your family? or
Well,
what
so
do you think?
I'm just looking at some of the comments that we've got here, and one of them says, the abrupt ending of the school year really took a toll on my 13-year-old. And so what can we do about that, right, as parents, right? Or how do we help to navigate those?
That's right.
Because this is completely unexpected,
It
right?
is. It
That all of a
is.
sudden school is now
Well,
done.
and I'm grateful for that question because I think a lot of attention is being put, and rightfully so, to seniors and people who have certain significant school years, 5th grade, 8th grade, seniors high school, senior college. I have a senior in college. I can't even go there right this minute. But, then there's those in-between grades
Yeah,
that I found myself, and maybe this commenter could suggest just sitting and holding the space with the pain of that abrupt ending. What does it feel like in your body?
yeah,
Where does your head go? And what is actually the true and not true about investigating that experience of that abrupt ending? It really begs for a nice conversational exchange once we can release the contraction in the body to take it into the next solution phase. But right now, a lot of us are not in solution. We're still in experiencing these terrible disappointments.
yeah. Well, and I think a lot of that is just grief too,
Oh,
right?
yes.
Like all of a sudden, this thing that you thought that was going to be isn't anymore.
Right.
And so there's this part that as we are walking through this, or just kind of the stages of grief, right? There's going to be anger, there's going to be
So true.
hopelessness, there's going to be all of those same things, because it is a loss.
Yes.
And I think part of our responsibility as parents is just helping our teenagers to hold that,
Yes.
and giving it some language, giving it some
yes.
words. And so how do we help them to do that? And this whole notion that whatever it is that you're feeling at this particular moment is okay,
Right.
right? Whether it's sadness or anger or the thing is, it's just not dwelling in that place,
Exactly.
right? Like you can't stay there.
Right.
But-
It's allowing it to be though.
Right.
Because